Thank you for coming, everyone. My favorite part of that wonderful introduction is the word vocal. It's my favorite because my cohort in the social work program is going to graduate at the end of next year very, very well informed about North Korean refugees, but they're never going to want to hear anything about them ever again. That's because I have kind of a reputation as somebody who never shuts up about what they love to do. So when I tell people that about a year ago I probably would never have been this vocal, they're always a little perplexed. But I didn't start out as somebody who had any aspirations to be on the TEDx stage or anywhere else. I was introduced to my cause when I was a freshman in high school. I had sort of a cursory idea that the North Korean people were oppressed by their leaders, that they had no freedom of movement, of religion, of anything, and that they had this looming threat of prison camps for stepping even slightly out of line. But what I didn't know until I saw a documentary one weekend was that life is not that much better for them when they cross the border over into China in hopes of escaping. Because of the economic situation in North Korea, the Chinese government classes them as economic migrants. They ignore their oppression completely, and that makes them illegal border crossers. So they're forced to work in invisible industries and live as illegal immigrants. It forces them to work in areas of the country where they are at high risk of everything from labor exploitation to human trafficking and a myriad of things in between that as a high school freshman, I never would have even dreamt of imagining. So when I saw this documentary, I was so moved, and in a way that it just kept coming back and bothering me over and over again. It was like a bad penny. But I was really concerned because I didn't know what I could do. You see, at the time, I was living kind of in the middle of nowhere. To give you an idea, my high school total had 400 people in it, all 4 grades, itty bitty. I was living in a part of the country also that likes its tea sweet and its guns loaded, let's put it that way. So I didn't think I was going to find very many allies at school to talk to this about. And this is going to start a really awkward phone conversation for me later, I know it, but I was also afraid to tell my parents. Yeah. I was afraid to tell them, not for the least reason, because at the time my dad was still in the military. And I had this really vivid image in my head of my dad finding my Google history and calling the FBI like, "You're never gonna believe what my kid is doing. You've got to come get her." And they would come in this big SUV with black windows and no one would ever see me again. And now I know that that's not true. But when you're 15 and 16 years old and you're not really sure how Homeland Security works, it's very, very easy for you to imagine yourself being wheeled through the Pentagon all trussed up like Hannibal Lecter, but with like a lot more crying. So what I did was I turned to online activism. I spent a lot of time talking to people on forums about the things that I cared about. I learned a lot about the issue that way. I participated in fundraising blogathons. I think there's a fundraising tweet, like hashtag at the end of 90% of the tweets that I've ever made in my entire life. You name it, if it's online and it's activism, I've probably done it at some point. And I did that because it afforded me the anonymity that I needed to feel secure, that my family and my friends weren't going to have an adverse reaction to what I was doing, and I could still get out there and do it. And then I went off to college and I became a huge loudmouth. When my mom and I came down here the first time to look at Florida Gulf Coast University before I came here in August of 2012, I was reading his brochures in the passenger seat of my mom's car, and the thing that I saw first was that we are an Earth Charter affiliate. And you guys have been on our campus probably all day, so you know by looking at our beautiful campus that our Earth Charter affiliation makes us committed to sustainability. But it also talks about human rights. And I had my mind just running away with me, but in the opposite direction of an FBI search and seizure. And I was like, I have finally found my people. I can do something tangible here. I can I can start something and it'll be wonderful. And I turned to my mom and I remember saying, I think I could be really happy here. And things did not go exactly as planned when I got here in August. See, I knew that this was going to be a difficult sell. In the first place, as I'm sure we all know, North Korea does not have the best press in the world on this side of the ocean. Until very recently, none of the headlines have had anything to do with North Korea and human rights. Now, of course, we have the UN putting out a document that's more than 370 pages long and that dictates all of these things that the regime is doing that's a violation of human rights and a crime against humanity, which is awesome. But at the time, that didn't exist. So I had a difficult time finding allies here too. I would try to have conversations with staff and students, and I got a lot of negative feedback and a lot of no feedback. People sometimes refused to talk to me at all. Others, mostly students, I'll say that, they had a very violent reaction to what I wanted to do. They didn't want anything to do with anything even in the realm of North Korea. I have been called names. I've been called un-American. I've been called a communist. I've been called unpatriotic. I've had rocks thrown at me, and I've been spat at in my time here trying to get this started. And I was like, okay, you've got to be kidding. I thought this was going to be so much easier, and it turned out to be so much harder the second I started talking, and I was afraid. I was like, okay, this is too much. I have to quit. And then I made this really great friend at the end of last year. Her name is Anna, and Anna was repeatedly dispensing this really great piece of advice to me over and over again that I then proceeded to ignore because it sounded scary. She said, you have to stop giving a damn about what other people think, Jessica. Just do what you want to do what you're passionate about, and forget everybody else. She used a few more colorful words in there, but you get the idea. And I was like, well, Anna, I got to be honest with you. I'm a human rights activist at the core, and I don't think I have that mode. I don't think I'm wired for that. I care about everything. And then there was an incident that was particularly awful between myself and some other students, and I decided, all right, so I've got to stop caring. I took the summer, and I slowly became the person that I am now. I became the girl who never shuts up about North Korea. I became the girl who sends way too many emails to staff trying to get their attention to talk to them about this, to the point where I'm sure there are people in certain programs that are just violently ill at the thought of my name being at the end of an email. I approached professors who finally gave me the time of day, and I went into their classes on borrowed time, and I spoke to their students, and I said, look, I can't do this by myself. Here's what I'm trying to do. Here's why it's important. If you want to do something meaningful, if you want to do something worthwhile, come and talk to me. I would love to have you. And eventually, through all that determination, I found this group of amazing young women who were freshmen and wanted to be part of this, wanted to bring this to campus. And eventually, we did it. We did it on a very tiny timeline, but we did it. And it hasn't been easy. It's still not easy. We still face some of the things that I faced when I was first going through it. But the point is that I stopped caring, and it made all the difference. And you can do that too. This is not the TED Talk where I tell you that everything will go absolutely perfectly if you only dream, because I'm a little bit more realistic than that. But here are just a few things that you can do that will make things tangibly better. The first is to want, with everything that you've got, to make a change, but to understand that wanting it is not enough. You have to take real action in order to affect real change. And I'm not saying that you have to take to the streets with pitchforks right away. That comes much later. You have to earn your merit badges first. But remember what I said about online activism. Don't be afraid to share that link on Facebook. Don't be afraid to retweet that tweet. Don't be afraid of what your friends and family are going to think of it. First of all, even if your friends disagree with you, if they can't set that aside long enough to support you in something that you believe in, they probably weren't very good friends with you to begin with. Second, your family really does love you. They're not going to call the FBI on you, although I don't know, the jury's still out now that they know this. And they're going to support you no matter what. Don't assume the worst. The second is that although you're going to feel a lot like a superhero when things start to go right, you are not going to single-handedly save the whole world. Even Batman was in the Justice League, you guys. You have to have other people. Accept that, love it, and understand that things will occasionally be out of your hands and that you have to learn how to depend on other people to get things done. Find people who believe in what you believe in, keep them close, praise them, trust them, but also remember that you're there to hold one another accountable. So don't get upset when people come to you and tell you that something that you're doing is unproductive, and don't be afraid to say that to other people either. The third thing that you can do is just remember that there are people in the world that are never going to agree with what you say. And that's okay. There comes a point in a conversation where you can and probably should say, you know what, we're just never going to agree on this. We're just going to go into an infinite feedback loop of anger. Let's just call it off. We're going to agree to disagree. And that's fine. It's okay. Nobody wants to do that, but it's okay. The fourth, I can count, I promise. The fourth is that you can't be afraid and always flinching at the idea of putting yourself out there. You have to be willing to say the things that you're not supposed to say. Tell people you think they're wrong. Tell people you don't agree with them. Tell them why. Tell people that you have to agree to disagree. People tell you that that's rude. I don't agree. We'll put it that way. The last thing that you can do is to not be afraid to speak. The thing that you have to understand about being an advocate is that a lot of the time, you're speaking up for somebody who doesn't have a voice of their own. And if you don't speak up, there's a very good chance that no one else will. If you are an advocate for the voiceless and you won't speak up, you're not a very good advocate. And if you're not even willing to say, hey, look at these people over here so that they can have their own voice, you're not a very good advocate either. I know that we're all afraid of being the person in the back of the classroom that raises their hand to give an answer, and all of the heads in the room just swivel back to look at you, and you're like, crap. I really hope this is the right answer. But you have to let go of that fear. It's okay. And I'm not saying that all of this is going to go perfectly for you and that steps A, B, and C are exactly how to get to what you want. I can only speak to my experience. The point is that if I can do it, you can do it. A year ago, I was a person who flinched when anybody looked at me too long, and I thought, oh God, what did I do? Do I trip? Do I have something stuck to me? Why are they looking at me? And now I'm up here, and I'm an advocate for something that I care about. I'm a vocal advocate. Now I don't care what people think. The point is that you stop caring and you start being a real advocate. I'm challenging you right now. Find one thing that you really, really believe in. And it doesn't have to be human rights, although if you want in, I've got a place for you. Just, come talk to me. It can be something as small as a park that you grew up playing in that they're going to tear down to build something else. It can be as general as animals. End statement, just animals. The point is that you find it, you don't be afraid to tell people that you care about it, and you don't give a damn what other people say about it. You advocate regardless. Stop caring, start advocating. Thank you very much for coming, and good night.